Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Welcome to today's webinar on the topic Biggest Data Breaches of 2021 led by our Senior Cybersecurity Analyst Prakhar Hans. As more and more companies shift their employees to remote work, the rising trend in data breaches continues to grow upward in 2021. Data breaches can happen to any organizations, so it's important to understand your organization's risk of a data breach. So, without any further ado, I request Prakhar Hans to kindly take over. Over to you, Prakhar.
Thank you so much, Pratik. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the webinar. I hope everyone is safe and healthy today. In today's session, I will be talking about the biggest data breaches of 2021. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Prakhar Hans, and I work as a senior cybersecurity analyst at Network Intelligence. I have been working with network intelligence for about a year and a half, and the major domains that I work with are email forensics, phish defense, and malware analysis. If anyone wants to contact me after the webinar, maybe ask any questions, you can contact me through any of these social media profiles that I mentioned. Now, let us begin with the basics. What are data breaches? Day in and day out, we see one very common news in the field of digital security. The biggest companies and organizations in the world getting attacked and hacked, with data of millions of users getting leaked online for free or being sold for a very small price. Every single day, I wake up afraid, as I'm sure a lot of people do as well, of whether my phone number, my card information, my passwords were leaked in another data breach today. Let us continue and see what data breach actually means. Now, to define a data breach exposes confidential information, sensitive information, or protected information to an unauthorized party. The files in a data breach are viewed and or shared without permission. And like I said before, these files are then shared for free on the internet or sold for a small price on hacker forums or even on the dark net. Anyone can be at risk of a data breach, from individuals to high-level enterprises and even governments. More importantly, anyone can put others at risk if they are not protected. But you might ask, why do data breaches happen? In general, data breaches happen due to two main reasons. The first is weakness in technology. As our computers and mobile devices get more connective features, there are more places for data to slip through. New technologies are being created faster than we can protect them. Devices in the IoT sector are proof that we are increasingly valuing convenience over security. Many smart home products have gaping flaws like lack of encryption, and hackers are taking advantage. Since new digital products, services, and tools are being used with minimal security testing, we'll continue to see this problem grow for a very long time. The second reason for data breach is weakness in user behavior. Now, even if a backend technology was set up perfectly, which we know is not the case for majority of big corporations, but even if it were, some users will most likely still have poor digital habits. All it takes is one person to compromise a website or a network. Now, without comprehensive security at both the user and enterprise levels, anyone is almost guaranteed to be at risk. Now, as I just said, protecting yourself and others, having good digital habits, etc., is very important. But it starts with understanding how a data breach actually occurs. And let's look into that now. The common assumption is that a data breach is caused by an outsider hacker. But that's not always true. Reasons for how data breaches might happen sometimes can be traced back to internal attacks. However, it can just as easily result from a simple oversight by individuals or flaws in a company's infrastructure. A really good example of an insider mistake would be an employee using coworker's computer and reading files without having a proper authorization permission. The access is unintentional and no information is shared. However, because it was viewed by an unauthorized person, the data is considered breached. A malicious insider is a person who purposely accesses and or shares data with the intent of causing harm to an individual or a company. The malicious insider may have legitimate authorization to use the data, but the intent is to use the information in nefarious ways. Company insiders know the value of information and sometimes they steal it. Maybe they sell it to the competition, or use it to start a new company. The departure of a trusted staff member with access to sensitive information can become a data breach if the staff member retains access to the data after the termination of his or her employment and then misuses that data. Now, the issue here is that the malicious actor is someone in whom your organization has placed trust. Worse yet, as pointed out by Verizon's report, catching insider abuse is not easy. And in many of the incidents that they reviewed, the insider abuse was discovered during forensic examination of user devices after the individuals left the company. While preventing insider abuse is nearly impossible, damage can be limited through compartmentalization of information on your network or cloud. The fewer files and systems a single user can access, the harder it is for them to abuse their access. Now, when an unencrypted or unlocked laptop or external hard drive, anything that contains sensitive information goes missing, be it lost or stolen, such a loss of physical assets can be both deliberate or accidental. The severity of a data breach from a stolen device depends largely on the nature of the information stored on the device. More sensitive information generally equals to a more severe data breach if the device is stolen without being wiped. Now, most of these thefts are opportunistic in nature, making them difficult to predict. The best solution is often to reduce the opportunities for removing data storing devices from the work site. And if you want to dispose of the devices, shred the data. As simple as that. Malicious outside criminals are hackers who basically use various attack vectors to gather information from a network or an individual. Denial of service are attacks that target networks and systems on a daily basis, basically flooding the systems with data to disrupt their services. Distributed denial of service attacks are the same thing, except the flooding initiates from a large number of computers instead of one or two, just to make it harder to detect. Sign up for a web application, you often share personal details. Attackers steal data such as names, addresses, and other information and use them for malicious reasons. Criminals can place a skimming device on a credit card reader to steal personal and financial information. The best example for this are ATMs. And last, point of sale intrusions. Remote attacks target point of sale terminals and controllers. Restaurants and small businesses have seen increased assault in this case. And the biggest reason for data breaches are crimewares. Now, since malicious data breaches result from cyber attacks, we should know how they actually look like or what to actually look for. First kind is ransomware. Now, this kind of malware technically holds computer files hostage until the victim pays to unlock them, though the files might not even get unlocked once you pay the hackers. In SQL injection, a hacker inserts arbitrary code into an online user web form. If the form isn't handled properly, when passed through the backend database, it can corrupt the entire website. Phishing is a type of social engineering attack in which the cyber thief poses as a trusted source and contacts the victim through email, phone call, direct chat, or text message. The goal is to trick the victim into installing malware or sharing personal information, such as bank account information or passwords. In a more brash approach, hackers might enlist software tools to guess your passwords. Brute force attacks work through all the possibilities for your passwords until they guess correctly. These attacks take some time, but have become rapid as computer speeds continue to improve. Hackers even hijack other devices like yours via malware infections to speed up the process. If your password is weak, it might only take a few seconds to crack it. Malware. Your device's operating system, software, hardware, or the network and servers you're connected to can have security flaws. These gaps in protection are sought out by criminals as the perfect place to shove their malware into. Spyware specifically is ideal for stealing private data while being completely undetected. You might not find this infection until it's too late. Now, we just saw the various reasons of why data breaches happen. But once the data breaches happen, what do the hackers actually want? What exactly do they target? Let us look into it. Although a data breach can be a result of an innocent mistake, real damage is possible if the person with unauthorized access steals and sells personally identifiable information or corporate intellectual data for financial gain or to cause harm. Malicious criminals tend to follow a very basic pattern: targeting an organization because a breach takes planning. They research their victims to learn where the vulnerabilities are, such as missing or failed updates and employees susceptible to phishing campaigns. Hackers learn a target's weak points, then develop a campaign to get insiders to mistakenly download a malware. Sometimes they go after the network directly. Once inside, malicious criminals have the freedom to search for the data they want and lots of time to do it, as the average breach takes more than 5 months to detect. Now, as I mentioned, hackers look for vulnerabilities to get access to the targets. Let us see what those vulnerabilities are. Common vulnerabilities targeted by malicious criminals include weak credentials. The vast majority of data breaches are caused by stolen or weak credentials. If malicious criminals have your username and password combination, they have an open door into your network. Because most people reuse their passwords, cyber criminals can use brute force attacks to gain entrance to email, websites, bank accounts, and other sources of personal or financial information. Stolen credentials. Breaches caused by phishing are a major security issue, and if the cyber criminals get hold of this personal information, like I just mentioned, they can use it to get access to things like your bank and online accounts. Compromised assets. Various malware attacks are used to negate regular authentication steps or compromise these steps that would normally protect your computer. I mentioned this one before. Card skimmers attach their skimming machines to gas pumps or ATMs and steal data whenever a card is swiped. Third-party access. Although you might do everything possible to keep your network and data secure, malicious criminals could use third-party vendors to make their way into your system. And last, mobile devices. When employees are allowed to bring their own devices, BYOD service, into the workplace, it's easy for unsecured devices to download malware-laden apps that give hackers access to data stored on the device. That often includes work email and files, as well as the owner's personal information. Now, you might wonder, once the hackers set their target, follow their pattern, successfully enter a system and steal the data they want, what do they actually do with the set data? Cyber criminals don't just hold on to the information they access. They may find ways to exploit it for personal gain. Most often than not, they use it to steal your money or use your benefits. Depending on the information they have, a cyber thief may be able to open and use new credit cards under your name, withdraw money from your banking or investment accounts, file a tax return in your name and take the tax refund, get medical treatment using your health insurance, apply for government benefits, open utility or telecom accounts, steal and use your credit card rewards such as airline miles, or sell it on the dark web. The criminals who access a lot of stolen information often trade or sell it on the dark web. According to an Experian report, in the United States of America, social security numbers might go for $1 each, a credit card number to sell up for up to $110, and a US passport might fetch up to $2,000 on the dark net. Let us now dive into a little more detail about what kind of impact these data breaches have. In many cases, data breaches cannot just be patched up with some password changes. The effects of a data leak can be a lasting issue for your reputation, finances, and more. For business organizations, a data breach can have a devastating effect on an organization's reputation and financial bottom line. Organizations such as Equifax, Target, and Yahoo, for example, have been the victims of a data breach. And today, many people associate or remember those companies for the data breach incident itself rather than their actual business operations. For government organizations, compromised data can mean exposing highly confidential information to foreign parties. Military operations, political dealings, and details on essential national infrastructure can pose a major threat to a government and its citizens. For individuals, identity theft is a major threat to data breach victims. Data leaks can reveal everything from personal ID numbers to banking information. Once a criminal has these details, they can engage in all types of fraud under your name. Theft of your identity can ruin your credit, pin you with legal issues, and it is difficult to fight back against. While these are common cases, the harm done by data breaches can extend far beyond these situations. So it is essential that you investigate whether your data has already been exposed. A very good and easy way to find out if your personal or work accounts have been compromised is to use a website called haveibeenpawned.com. This tool checks existing data breaches for your email address and reports what was leaked. Of course, the best way to protect yourself is to avoid being a victim in the first place. No security plan is perfect, but there are ways you can defend yourself, whether you are an individual or an enterprise. I will discuss some more ways to protect yourself later in the presentation. Now, this was all about what data breaches actually are. Let us now get into the main part of the presentation, the major data breaches of 2021 that shook the internet. I'm going to start with the incident, which is allegedly believed to be one of the biggest data breaches in history of India, the MobiKwik fiasco. First of all, let us go over points of information about the breach, then we will dive into the actual timeline of the hack. In the MobiKwik data breach, data of more than 110 million or 11 crore users was stolen and sold on the darknet. The total size of the data set was said to be a whopping 8.2 terabytes. The entire data was being sold for approximately 1.5 bitcoins. Now, not only was this one of the biggest data breaches, but also one of the most crucial ones, because the most important data for users like their KYC documents, Aadhaar cards, credit card details, mobile phone numbers linked to the MobiKwik wallets were all leaked. And I'm sure you can imagine leak of such information can be catastrophic. The leak was first identified by an independent security researcher called Rajshekhar Rajharia. The news about the data breach was categorically denied by MobiKwik, but the news still got viral as it was backed by a well-known French security researcher called Robert Baptiste, who's also known as Elliot Alderson on Twitter. You all must remember him. He was the same researcher who picked a fight with the Identification Authority of India and revealed vulnerabilities in the Aadhaar card database a couple of years ago. Now, this news was also backed by Troy Hunt, the creator of the website haveibeenpawned.com, which I just mentioned. Based on the research done by Rajshekhar, the closest he could get to the identity of the hacker was his or her Discord username, which was Jordan Devon. We can only assume the hackers aren't actually from Jordan, or this would be just one hell of a double bluff. Another username that was found was ninja_storm, which was the handle that posted the leak on the forums. Anyway, moving forward, let us see how the timeline of the entire incident looks like. This all started way back in February when on the 24th of the month, NinjaStorm posted on a dark web forum with a claim to have access to pictures, KYC documents, credit cards, bank statements, PAN cards, etc. of over 100 million users, totaling up to 6 gigabytes. They did not mention the name of the victim, only hinted that it was one of the top 3 digital wallet and UPI firms in India. The very next day, a conversation was seen on the hackers' Discord group, where the username Jordan Devon was trying to sell the alleged leaked data of MobiKwik and discussing the price of the said data leak, as you can see in the picture on the slide. Seeing that this could be a really bad situation, the security researcher informed MobiKwik the very same day. About an hour later, the hacker posted on the forum that they have a bad news. The hacker claimed to have lost access to the main server of MobiKwik. The next day, on 26 February, the security researcher posted on Twitter that there has been a massive leak for MobiKwik users, warning everyone to secure their data as soon as possible. After this tweet took off and news channels started picking up, CERT-In got involved. As we all know, CERT-In is a part of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology for the Government of India. CERT-In contacted the security researcher and asked for details and proof about the news, which were promptly provided by the researcher himself. Now, about a week later, on 4th March, the hackers shared a new sample of the data leak. After this, CERT-In officially registered a complaint MobiKwik and the authorities were immediately alerted. After a few hours, MobiKwik finally came forward with a response. They tweeted claiming that the news of the data breach from their organization is false and denied everything that the security researcher had claimed. They even threatened to take legal action against the researcher, calling him media crazed. That was the last and final response from the organization, and they have since not talked about the incident. After this, for a few days, there were tiny incidents happening, like the researcher's tweets being deleted, his account being suspended, etc. But other than that, there was complete silence from all parties involved for a few weeks. But this all changed uh, when on 27th March, the hacker finally posted on the dark web forum that they have successfully recovered all the data of the users, which is now more than 7.5 terabytes. The final price of the entire dataset was said to be 1.5 bitcoins. On around 30th March, hacker Ninja Storm posted another update on the forum. But this time they said that they had received overwhelming response from people across India. Common people contacting them to take down their personal information, lawyers from organizations, security researchers asking for more details, other hackers asking to collaborate or purchase their dataset, and obviously kids asking them how to learn hacking. Apparently, the main goal of the hacker was to show the incompetence of the organization and not actually sell the private data of the people. Hence, they claimed that they had deleted the entirety of 8.2 terabytes worth of data and its two backups that they had possessed. The search engine website of the data breach also showed a message saying all MobiKwik data deleted from the servers, all users safe, as you can see on the screen. Now, just for your knowledge, this is how the search engine on the darknet actually looked like before the data was taken down. Let us now talk about another data breach that created chaos among the netizens, the LinkedIn data breach. This happened in early April 2021. Let's go over the major points of the data breach. During the LinkedIn data breach, data was scrapped from more than 500 million LinkedIn profiles. Not only that, data scrapped from around 2 million LinkedIn accounts was available for free as proof. Like before, this was also posted on a darknet forum. A 4-digit figure, preferably in bitcoins, was being asked for the dataset, but the actual value was not revealed unless you offer to purchase the dataset. But the data leaked in the LinkedIn data breach included full names, email addresses, phone numbers, workplace information, and many more. The leak was identified by cyber news analysts, and the hacker who originally posted the ad for sale of the dataset was called Rolling Zeus, which was his or her username on the forum. As you can see on the screen, the hacker going by the name Rolling Zeus posted the first ad on 6th April. Now, initially, this looked like this was the end of it, but soon it seemed that other threat actors were looking to piggyback on the leak, and there was another data breach. The second LinkedIn data breach included data scrapped from over 327 million LinkedIn profiles. All this data was uploaded and sold on the same forum as before, but this time there was a proper amount mentioned. The data set was being sold for around 7,000 US dollars worth of bitcoins. This breach was also identified by cyber news analysts, and based on the samples they saw from the leaked files, they appear to contain a variety of mostly professional information from LinkedIn profiles, including LinkedIn IDs, full names, email addresses, phone numbers, genders, links to LinkedIn profiles, links to other social media profiles, professional titles, and other work-related data. This sale advertisement was posted by a hacker that went by the name Wall Cleaner on the forum. Yeah, I know, really creative. As you can see on the screen, on February 9th April, on Friday 9th April, the new collection of LinkedIn databases was put for sale on the same hacker forum by Wall Cleaner. This new author claimed to be in possession of both the original 500 million database as well as 6 additional archives that included 327 million scrapped LinkedIn profiles. You can see an example of the second data set on the screen. The redacted part is the personal email addresses and phone numbers of the victims of the data breach. Now, the response from LinkedIn was not very comforting, as company did not take full responsibility of the breach. They said that the data for sale was not acquired as a result of the data breach, and is actually an aggregation of data from a number of websites and companies. According to their statement, no private member account data from LinkedIn was included in what they had been able to review. Let's now move on to the next data breach, which is said to be one of the most crucial hacks of this year, the Microsoft Exchange server hack. Let's go over the major points of the hack, then we will dive into the entire timeline. It was reported that during this hack, more than 250,000 servers running the Microsoft Exchange service was affected. Servers owned by over 30,000 organizations in the United States of America and over 7,000 servers in the United Kingdom were affected. Other major targets were the European Banking Authority, the Norwegian Parliament, and Chile's Commission for the Financial Market, or CMF. 4 major zero-day exploits were created that affected the Microsoft Exchange servers. Using these zero-day exploits, attackers managed to get administrative access of the servers. The attackers managed to install backdoors, and a ransomware called DearCry was found being deployed on the affected servers as well. The zero-day exploits were identified by a Taiwanese company, computer security researcher known as Cheng Tsai or OrangeSci, and its security firm DevCore. State-run Chinese hacker group called Hafnium were known to be the attackers affecting the servers. Let's now quickly go over the timeline of the hack. On January 3, 2021, the cyber espionage operations against the Microsoft Exchange server began. The hack was being done using SSRF vulnerability or server-side request forgery. 2 days later, on January 5th, researcher Cheng Tsai and the security firm DevCore disclosed the vulnerabilities to Microsoft. Now, here is where the things got really interesting. The timing of this, the beginning of the attacks and the disclosure of the vulnerabilities, resulted in some speculation whether the exploits were leaked by DevCore or Microsoft. It has been an open question as to how half a dozen hacking groups began exploiting Exchange servers in an automated fashion. There are strong signs that exploit code did leak, but the question now is, who leaked it? The security researcher Cheng Tsai indicated that exploit code he developed and privately shared with Microsoft in early January ended up in hostile hands. DevCore, the firm he worked for, however, said it is confident that it did not leak the exploit. DevCore CEO Alan Owen declined to comment. Other than that, an investigation turned up nothing suspicious. Now attention had turned to Microsoft. The exploit was used to attack tens of thousands of Exchange email servers before Microsoft deployed software patches on March 2nd. Microsoft is now investigating whether one of its partners is at fault. There's a chance we'll never know who leaked it, although after research, Microsoft partners in China are likely in an investigative spotlight. Information could have leaked through a partner that does not even know that it has been compromised by the attackers. Anyway, moving on. On February 26th and 27th, the earlier targeted exploits turned global as Hafnium hackers accelerated the backdooring of vulnerable servers. On March 2nd, Microsoft released an emergency security update to fix the 4 zero-day vulnerabilities in Exchange server to counter the Hafnium attack. Now, on the very same day, MSTIC, or the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center, announced to the public that Chinese hacker group Hafnium was responsible for the attack. Microsoft released the information that Hafnium is a state-run Chinese hacker group and is a highly skilled and sophisticated threat actor. The next day, on March 3rd, the CISA, or the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, issued emergency directive for all federal agencies to disconnect from Microsoft Exchange on-premise servers and begin incident response procedures. On March 6th, the Wall Street Journal reported the Exchange server hack may have affected up to 250,000 organizations. The very next day, on March 7th, the EBA, or the European Banking Authority, reported hackers attacked Exchange servers at the EBA. In a statement, the EBA announced access to personal data through emails held on those servers may have been obtained by the attackers. As a precautionary measure, the EBA decided to take its entire email systems offline. Now, at this point, Microsoft also found evidence of increase in attack by threat actors apart from Hafnium using the zero-day exploits. Next day, on March 8th, the CISA issued an alert recommending 5 steps that organizations can take to address the exchange vulnerabilities immediately. The process starts with creating a forensic image of the system, and then the next steps involve running scripts prepared by the CISA and Microsoft to remediate the effect of the attack on the servers. 2 days later, ESET research found that 10 APT or Advanced Persistent Threat Cybercrime groups were exploiting the exchange flaws for various purposes. This includes groups known as Lucky Mouse, Calypso, Tonto Team, DLT Miner, etc. Also, by this date, that is March 10th, according to Reuters, up to 60,000 Exchange servers in Germany were exposed to Exchange server vulnerabilities. Now, during a span of 4 days, that is between March 11th and 15th, according to Checkpoint Software's observation, the number of attempted Exchange attacks increased 10 times, from 700 to around 7,200 in 4 days. On March 15th, Microsoft released a one-click on-premises mitigation tool to assist customers who do not have dedicated IT security to apply updates to Exchange Server. And by the next day, March 16, at least 1,200 Dutch servers were reported affected by the Exchange hacks. 2 days later, on March 18th, Microsoft announced their Defender antivirus and System Center endpoint protection, which now automatically mitigates the CVE vulnerabilities on any vulnerable server. A few days later, researchers from F-Secure reported that thousands of cyber attacks still continue daily due to unpatched Exchange vulnerabilities. They stated that only half of Exchange servers visible on the internet have applied required patches. On April 13th, the Department of Justice announced that the FBI was granted a search and seizure warrant by a Texas court that allows the agency to copy and remove web shells from hundreds of on-premise Microsoft Exchange servers owned by private organizations. And by the end, on April 22, Cybereason researcher Leo Rochberger releases an extensive report showing how the Promoti cryptocurrency botnet has exploited the exchange vulnerabilities to install crypto mining software for Monero coins. Now, we have now seen how Microsoft hack happened, how the company responded and fixed the problem. Now, let's come to the last example of this webinar, one of the most famous hacks of 2021, and I'm sure every one of you must have heard of this, the infamous Facebook data breach. Let's go over the major points. In the Facebook data breach, private information of over 533 million accounts was leaked. The leaked data included the private information of Mark Zuckerberg himself. Now, fun fact, it was reported that people got a hold of Mark's phone number, and it was found that he was using Signal instead of WhatsApp. Now, I could not find any credible source for this, so as of now, this is just a meme. Moving on, the size of the data set was reported to be 77.2 gigabytes and in uncompressed form, and around 10.4 gigabytes in compressed form. Data that was leaked included people's phone numbers, Facebook IDs, full names, locations, birth dates, bios, and email addresses. The leak was first identified by Alon Gal, who is an Israel-based co-founder and CTO of cybercrime intelligence firm Hudson Rock. The hacker who leaked the data was known as Tom Liner, which was his or her forum handle. Moving on, as you can see on the screen, on 3rd April, the hacker first posted on one of the hacker forums, claiming to have access to information on 553 million Facebook accounts. The hacker also revealed the total number of users per country whose data were present in the leaked dataset. If the image is not clear, you can cross-check the information yourself. This is public knowledge. As you can see, the maximum number of users were from USA, that is more than 32 million users. There were more than 11 million users from the United Kingdom and about 6 million users from India itself. Let us now see how the leak actually happened. It was reported that private information of users was primarily obtained by exploiting Facebook's contact importer feature. This feature allows users to find friends on the social media app using their phone's contact list. It was confirmed by researchers and Facebook themselves that the data had been scrapped due to the same vulnerability. But it was done all the way back in 2019. The information about the leak was not known to anyone until last year when someone posted a set of leaked data on one of the forums. Facebook claimed that they had patched the vulnerability in August 2019. According to Facebook, attackers did not hack Facebook's systems by injecting malicious code. They only scrapped the data from its services. Now, you might see that this leak was a little bit similar to LinkedIn's security incident that I talked about earlier, where the data from over 500 million users was scrapped from the website. Even though this was similar to the LinkedIn incident, the LinkedIn data breach contained other professional information, which added another layer of sensitivity. Now, we have seen what really happened, but why was this data breach so crucial? Alan Gall, the man who identified the leak, confirmed that data from the 2021 Facebook data breach was now being stored on multiple groups on Telegram. The data set seems to appear on various hacker forums all over the internet as well. According to Alan Gall, since the breach included a lot of personal information, this information can be used for various reasons like email frauds, scam phone calls, phishing attacks, SIM swapping, target advertising, online fraud schemes, and even to impersonate users. Now, with these examples, I hope all of you must have understood the huge impact an incident like this can cause. But let's say this happened for whatever the reasons. What do we do now? What to do if you've been breached? The first thing to do is to take action quickly. If you see suspicious activity, contact the financial institutions involved immediately. If your information was stolen in a data breach, let them know that as well. Back up your files and ensure their safety. Wipe your hard drive. If you are recycling your old computer, make sure that you shred your data prior to disposal. The same goes for your smartphones and tablets. Find out what kind of data was stolen. If you hear news about a breach of a website that you frequently use, try to pinpoint which accounts might be compromised and consider following whatever help the breached organizations are offering. And you can try to figure out which accounts were compromised using the website that I told earlier, haveibeenpawned.com. Change and strengthen your passwords on all accounts. Even accounts that weren't breached might be compromised later, especially if you've been using the same passwords. A password manager like Bitwarden can help you create strong passwords and keep them safe. Monitor your accounts and look for suspicious activity. This may include charges or withdrawals you did not make or new accounts that appear on your credit report. And lastly, I would like to talk about how to protect yourself from any of the future data breaches. Data breach prevention needs to include everyone at all levels, from end users to IT personnel and all the people in between. When you're trying to plan how to prevent data breach attacks or leaks, security is only as strong as the weakest link. Every person that interacts with the system can be a potential vulnerability. Even small children with a tablet on your home network can be a risk. So some of the best practices to avoid data breaches are as following. Create strong, secure, and complicated passwords. Use passwords managers to make things easier. Use different passwords on every different account. This can help minimize the damage if one of your account passwords is exposed or compromised. Always use secure websites. Shred documents instead of just deleting them or disposing them. Never, ever, ever share your personally identifiable information online unless you trust the source. Make sure your computers and mobile devices are running the latest versions of operating systems and applications. Always use high-grade encryption for sensitive data. And last, but probably the most important one, educate your employees, your colleagues, your friends and family about the risk of online data. Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much, Prakhar. I hope you all enjoyed this amazing presentation. Now let's start with the Q&A session. You can post your questions in the Q&A section over there.